we're just going to be we're going to be giving you guys some tips on building your insurance business, how to set expectations properly. What does that actually look like, right? And so that's a really important thing while building your business. I want to kick this off with a little story, right? So when Morgan and I started in the insurance business 3.5 years ago, we started building very quickly. We both came from the mortgage industry, and we had a pretty big network in our warm market from that industry. So we recruited a ton of people, right? At the time, we were one of the fastest growing agencies here at FFL. I think by the end of our first year, we were like close to 700K a month in team production, right? And so we grew really, really quickly, but we did not grow sustainably. And that was the biggest thing. So at the end of that year, we were making good money, we had a big team, but it all ended up collapsing on us. And so we had to figure out like what was the biggest, like why did that happen? And the reason was because we were not setting expectations properly with people. We weren't giving people, the structure that they needed to succeed. And so it's not really not about like how many people you recruit, right? It's about how many people that you can recruit and actually teach them to be successful. And so that was the biggest thing for us. We had to shift some things and learn some things and implement those things into our business to have the business that we have today. Morgan, you want to jump in?
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, just making sure you're finished up over there. But yeah, that's one thing that we always like to kind of acknowledge on these calls, because I even know for me, as someone who's newer into the building space and just like the insurance space in general, it's very daunting to hear from these people all the time that it seemed like they got into the insurance space and things just worked out for them, right? Like they just are constantly growing and it doesn't seem like they ever skip a beat. And it could be one of those things where, like, at least for me, that wasn't my experience. So it actually can kind of was discouraging in a way. So for us, like, we always like to acknowledge that it's like we came in just like anybody else. Like, we didn't have any pre-existing experience building up a massive sales organization. So we did a lot of things incorrectly. And we had to kind of just reassess our business. We had to kind of audit what we were doing and how we were running it, and then just kind of move forward differently. So the second time around, right when we were rebuilding, we definitely grew slower than we did before, but it was something that we could be very comfortable that we knew we would be able to retain and sustain moving forward. So that's kind of what we wanted to talk about today is the fast growth is great, right? The crushing numbers from the previous month, every single month is great. But like what we should really be looking to do here as we look to build up our businesses is how long can I sustain that growth month over month, year over year, right? We don't want to be, a shooting star and out of the business in a year because we just didn't do it sustainably. So one thing that we really looked at, right, when we were looking at trying to be a little bit different moving forward after this moment where our business kind of, collapsed on us, was really how we were kind of setting expectations with the people we were bringing into the business, because that's where it starts, right? It starts with your newest agent. Like, what is the newest agent getting told? How is the business getting represented? How prepared are they for what they're walking into? Right. So that's what we kind of looked at first. So we're going to kind of start there on what are conversations looking like with agents before they come in, as they come in, and while they're here. Right. So Ryan, I want you to start off with like the way that we changed up the expectations and that even that initial hiring call and who we are looking to partner with.
Yeah, so the most important thing, guys, is like you have to set the tone right away. So like right in that very first recruiting call, you have to be very transparent with people about like what they need to be doing every single day, that you're going to hold them accountable to that and what those expectations are. So, we learn that, and in our recruiting calls, typically what we like to talk about is having a daily structure, right? Like our team is going to work 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. Monday through Friday, right? Saturdays, 8 a.m. to noon. I always tell people to like at the beginning when you start in this business, it's a risk. Like you're spending your own money, and there's a learning curve for every single person that comes into this business. That learning curve is going to be different for every single person. Some people, it might be 100 hours, right? Some people, it might be 50, whatever the case may be. So knowing that though, what we tell people is like you're going to want to include working Saturdays, at least when you first start. because that's going to give you more reps, more time to shorten that learning curve as much as possible. So that's one of the things that we like to include in our very first call. And I like to see how people respond to that. Because if they're like, oh man, like I got to work Saturdays, like I don't think this is for me, like great, you're not somebody I want to work with anyway, right? I want to work with people who want to work hard. So sometimes I'll be like, hey, we work Saturdays, blah, blah, blah. And they're like, oh man, can I work Sundays too? Like I've had people ask me that. I'm like, you're in, like, let's go, right? You want to work with people that are willing to put in the work, that are going to show up and that see that vision that you have. The
Yeah,
other,
absolutely. One thing to add to that really quick, but kind of before we move on to the next expectation, just on the topic of hours, right? This can be kind of like super taboo. We personally only really work with full-time agents. If we are working with somebody that's part-time, it's only with the intention to come full-time. And I always like to kind of explain why, right? At least for us and our experience in training people, this isn't a business that works very, very well part-time. I mean, at least for us, right? Just like the way that we've been able to capitalize on the business has been just through grit, right? Like making sure that we're making it our life 24/7. So for us, it's like when we frame this to a new agent, right? Instead of being like, you just have to work all these hours, right? Because you still want to make sure that they're excited about the opportunity presented to them. I like to frame it this way. I like to say, hey, realistically, I don't know how long it's going to take you to figure it out, right? There's a learning curve that every single person's going to go through. And the reason why we have this level of expectation for you to start, right? It's not forever, is to be able to create enough momentum. We want to put so much activity in place in that first 6 months of your business that it would be unreasonable for you to fail, right? That's the point, right? Working the late nights, the early mornings, the Saturdays, that's a level of activity to where it will be unreasonable for you to not get results. So for me, I'm sure you coming to me as a mentor, you want to make sure that I can get you results, right? Perfect. This is the way that I know how to get you results, right? Is making sure that the activity again is so high that it would be unreasonable for you to not win. So that's kind of the way that I like to frame it. And people actually usually appreciate that because I always tell them, I'm like, hey, if you're only doing 15, 20 hours a week, I can't guarantee you any positive results. I just can't. Like you could make it, there's a possibility, but I typically like to operate out of guarantees, right? I can guarantee you results if you give me that many hours. So sorry, I just wanted to add that really quick, Brian, and then you can.
the other thing too is like setting an expectation of people being plugged in. Like the people that make it in this business are the ones that come to these trainings, right? They're the people that are showing up on Zoom or Discord every single day, right? They're the people that are going to the conferences. So when I recruit people, I'm like, hey, this is an expectation. Like if you want to come do insurance, like you're gonna plug into what we're doing, right? So like I make that an expectation that they're gonna have to come to those conferences. They're gonna have to show up to the lock-ins. They're gonna have to show up to the trainings. Like if they're not on Zoom in the morning, like at the very beginning, like I'm checking them. I'm gonna text them or call them, be like, where are you at? Right? Like our team gets on Zoom, we're, cameras on, we unmute when we're on calls, we're staying plugged in because that's how you're gonna find success. That's how you're gonna get help and get trained.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think one thing about that is like that's why we say like there's a conversation before and there's also a conversation when they start because you can set all the expectations ahead of time, right? When you're on the hiring call and maybe they're all for it. But when it comes down to that first couple of weeks, guys, like they're creating habits whether they know it or not, right? So that first couple weeks, right? That's where I want them to know that I notice if they don't show up on time. I want them to know that I notice if they're not putting in certain level of hours that we kind of establish at the beginning. Because if I don't, and I try to address it a month and a half in or 2 months in, now they've already formed this habit of showing up late. They've already formed this habit of only putting in 100 dials or whatever it might be. So anything above and beyond that feels like a chore or like I'm adding something to their plate, right? So some people might feel like, oh, well, I don't want to have to babysit people if they want it, they're going to show up, which is true. But what we also need to do as a mentor, right, in those first couple of weeks is make sure that they understand that there's repercussions for them not doing certain things, not showing up on time, right? For example, there's an agent this morning where I'm like, hey, you said you want to be a top producer. It's 9:30, your time zone. I don't see you. Like, what's going on? Right. And they're like, oh, I had this happen, this happened. I was like, hey, you said you want me to help you be a top producer. Think about 9:30 today doesn't seem like a big deal. But if you compound that over the next 6 months, right? Somebody who's literally just showing up at 8 and starting work is going to be leaps and bounds ahead of you. I don't want that for you. So like tomorrow, can I expect to see you at 8? And they said, yep, absolutely. Right. So it doesn't have to be confrontational. It doesn't have to be a negative thing. You just have to remind them, hey, the reason I have this expectation is not because I'm trying to micromanage you. The reason I have this expectation is I don't want you to look back in 6 months disappointed in where you're currently at, right? I want you to be stoked about where you're at. So,
One thing too is like your business is going to rise or fall to the level of the standard that you set, right? And so, and your standards are only going to be as high as what you tolerate. So like you can sit there and say, hey, this is our standard, but then like if people come in and they just aren't doing those things and you allow that in your business, then that's not really your standard. Now your standard is whatever you're allowing, right? So you have to decide like what sort of standard do you want to set and then actually hold people accountable to that, which also means like if you're going to say this is what we have to do with our team, you better be doing the same thing. Like you have
yep.
to uphold yourself to that same standard if you're going to expect others to do it, right? And so that kind of brings me to the next thing is like knowing when to let people go and like how does that conversation happen? Like it should never be like a negative conversation where it ends badly like with people mad at each other, right? Like it should be a conversation that you approach in a way usually where I usually like to start out with saying something positive, but then I'm like, hey, listen, like just kind of going back to like the expectations that we set, which was XYZ. And this is what I'm seeing, right? XYZ. And basically, you're not doing the expectations that we talked about. And like, I'm having this conversation with you because I actually care about you. And I know that if you keep doing what you're doing, you're going to end up in a situation where you're broke and you're upset and you're probably in a really bad financial position. So, like, I want to have this conversation with you now because I don't want that to happen. I want to get ahead of it. And either we can get you doing the right things where you're now in a position to win and make money and be successful, or maybe it's best just to like look for a job and maybe this isn't the right fit for you. And that's literally how I have that conversation. And I don't think I've ever had it end like badly. Like people are usually pretty understanding and like grateful because you're coming from a place of caring.
Yeah, absolutely. Because we could let people just kind of, you know what I mean, kind of struggle a little bit, make a policy or sell a policy here and there, but we know that they're not profitable. But like that's for us, it's like if we have a business of a bunch of agents doing that, like that's not a solid business. And that's something that actually Ryan says a lot that I have now adopted kind of as my own philosophy is like when you look at an agent, right? Or you look at yourself, or you look at an agent in your business, if your business was only comprised of that agent, how good would you feel about that, right? Like, would you feel like scared to death or would you feel stoked, right? If you would feel scared to death of every agent in your team being like that one single agent, they probably shouldn't be a part of your business. And like again, that's not to be mean because that doesn't mean that they suck or anything like that. It just means that maybe this isn't the opportunity for them and that's okay. But the problem is if you have a team full of those types of agents where you'd be scared if that's what your whole team was consisted of, like they're going to bring down that standard that you're trying to create that's actually going to create real results for people. Like there's something so magnetic and exciting about being in a group of people that are all just same vision, locked in, wanting to make it happen for themselves, like staying late, like doing all of the things that are they should be doing to build their business. It makes you want to do those things. On the other side, right? If you're rolling up to an office or to a team Zoom or something where everyone's showing up late, no one's got their cameras on, no one's really working, no one's really committed, then you're not going to really start to buy into a vision either, right? So you've got to kind of constantly be refining and making sure that the people that are in your business deserve your time and attention in the sense of, okay, like, are they actually showing up and doing the things that are get them to have success? If not, they should just find a different opportunity. You know what I mean? No big deal, no harm, no foul. Not every single person's going to, really be able to take this industry for what it's worth, but you want to free up your time and your attention, right? And your energy for the people that do want it, right? And are willing to do the right things.
Yep. I always say too, I'm like, people are going to show you what they're going to do their first 30 days in the business. And what I mean by that is like they don't have to be a top producer, but they're going to show you who they are. They're going to show you their work, their level of work ethic. Um, this business exposes people. Like I always like to say that because it really does. Like there's people that'll talk this big game and then they come in and they're just not, they don't have the work ethic. Like maybe they have the talent, but like this business doesn't care about talent. It cares about one thing, and that's how hard you're willing to show up and work each and every single day. So that's the biggest thing is like knowing when to let people go. If in like 30 days, if I'm having to have like multiple conversations with them and like, hey, you're not doing the right things, you're not doing the right things, I try to cut it at that like 30-day mark because like I'm not going to waste my time. Like my time is valuable. That's the way I see it. I have valuable information that I can teach others with, but I'm only going to give that to people who deserve it and who are going to show up and do their end of the work, right?
Yep. Mentorship will only solve so much, guys. Like, and so as because like obviously this is a builder conversation. So we have to understand sometimes, especially being in that newer stages of building a team, we're so excited to have people that want to be a part of our business that we tend to extend so much of ourselves to them, even if we're really not getting back in return what we need in order to make them successful. Like I always tell people, it's like, does everyone, is everyone familiar with the phrase, like, you can't out train a bad diet? I'm sure everyone's probably heard that before, right? In the context of reach and fitness goals. So I say it like you can't out train a bad work ethic either, right? When it comes to this business. So like you can spend a gazillion years training and like trying to create systems for them and getting them the best CRM and the best leads and the best this and the best that. But like I can't physically out train or out mentor a lack of commitment or like a not strong work ethic. Like the top producers aren't just the most talented people. They have that combination of talent, work ethic, and attitude, right? And I always tell people if you come with to me with the work ethic and the attitude, that's best case scenario. You can come with zero talent, zero skill set, and I can fix that. Right. But what I can't fix is the work ethic and the attitude. So you've got to have that. You've got to come to me with that. And I can coach you to write whatever you want or succeed however much you want in this industry. But like me as a mentor, that's what I need, right? If I'm your fitness trainer, I need you to follow the diet that I put in front of you. I need you to do the workouts that I'm sending you. Otherwise, I can't get you the results. You have to look at it in the same exact way as you build up your business because Ryan and I were just spinning our wheels for so long because we were trying to out train bad work ethic. You know what I mean? Like, and it was frustrating for us because we felt like bad mentors, right? We felt like bad leaders. Like, why aren't we creating successful people? Well, the reason why wasn't necessarily a result of us not being good at training. It was just the fact that, we had to do a little bit more as far as setting expectations and the work that it would require.
Yeah. Some of the other expectations that we set too, like not just like work ethic and like hours and things like that, but like knowing your data, right? So we have to teach agents from the get-go and develop these habits for, making sure that they're recording their calls, right? Making sure that they're tracking their KPIs, how many leads they're buying per week, how many dials they're doing, how many presentations, how many sales. All of those things are super important. Um, I can't tell you like how many times I've had an agent who comes to me and they're like relatively new and they're like, well, I don't know where I'm going wrong. And I'm like, okay, well, pull up your sales tracker, right? Pull up your KPIs. And they're like, oh, I haven't actually been doing it. And I'm like, well, how can I help you? Right? Like, you know what I mean? Or let's pull some recorded calls and listen to them. I don't use a dialer system, so I don't have those. But it's like, how am I going to be able to help that person unless I'm actually I don't have time to sit there and listen to like every single call that this person is doing live all day, right? Like that's not a scalable way to do this. So setting those expectations and making sure they're having all their calls recorded, they're tracking those metrics, that's ultimately going to help you help them. And then they're going to start to understand like why that data is so important and how we can tweak things to help them succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. So, it's up to them to give us those numbers in order for us to provide any type of assessment on how to get better, right? So, all of those are kind of the things that we put in place as far as new agents coming in, as far as expectations that at least laid the foundation. That alone did not create the momentum of our business, right? It still came down to doing the hiring calls. It came down to, yeah, training and caring about people and supporting them and showing up ourselves every single day in the same way we were asking them to. But I do truly believe that us reassessing and making sure that these expectations and standards were set within our new generations of agents is really what laid the foundation for us to have like a more solid business moving forward. So above and beyond the things that you should be currently doing, right, to continue to grow the business, which is your recruiting calls, right? The training, the selling, to have, money to invest into your business, all of those things, right? Implementing marketing. So we started investing into marketing to start attracting people, to our business at a higher level. Those all definitely played a role with like the level of growth that we've seen, but the foundation of creating successful agents really, really came when we looked at these expectations and these standards that we set. I would say since we're at 9:21, should we open it for questions, Ryan?
Yeah,
Okay, awesome.
that's a good
Um,
question. Thank you.
yeah, we'll open for a couple questions since I think these are typically around 30 minutes. So I want to give a couple minutes for those. Ryan's from Alaska, so but we live in Scottsdale, Arizona now. Everyone always freaks out when I say he's from Alaska. The land of bears. All right, any questions from, I know somebody's got to have one or two. Don't
Come
be
on,
shy. No.
don't be scared.
That means we were clear. We were short and to the point. Love it. Oh, we can't unmute. How do we find people to
Really
hire?
find people to hire? So that's a great question. That has sort of evolved for us over time. So like when I first started, it was mostly warm market. I was just reaching out to people that I knew. But eventually that slowed down, right? And so then I started just reaching out to people on like LinkedIn and Instagram. And we did that for probably a year and a half before we ended up hiring somebody to do that for us. So we found virtual assistant, someone in like the Philippines, right, who would get on and basically send out messages for us. Um, and now we have a system where we do like paid ads and things like that. So like there's sort of a gradual progression, I guess you could say, with hiring, but the key, guys, is like whatever method you're using, you need to be, there's two different ways to hire, right? You're going to market and you're going to attract people organically who will reach out to you. And we do that by like posting our sales and posting like, wins with our team, posting stuff with like the culture, all that stuff. But then you also want to be manually reaching out to people. Like literally just talk to people. I'm not even kidding. I every time I valet my car somewhere, I like talk to the valet guy. It's usually like some young kid who wants to make money. And I'm like, dude, you want to make some money? Like, give me a call, right? So like I'm literally talking to everybody. We'll be sitting in a restaurant and we'll see like some, people sitting next to us talking about business and we'll lean over and start a conversation and try to recruit them. Like that's literally the best way to do is just talk to anybody that you see who you think would be a good fit for your team and just strike up a conversation, tell them what you do, you know?
Yeah. On that note, I would say when it comes to like how to hire at like a high level and attract people into your business, because social media is still about attraction, right? Like you have to be posting things that people are going to want to respond to. And not just like, because when we post these like leaderboards of, oh, I wrote 5,000 AP. Like a lot of people don't really know what that means. You know what I mean? And you also have to know that it's not just about the money for a lot of people. For some people, it's about how can I still make a very good living, but have the ability to like work at home and be with my kids. Like, so there's layers to like how you're going to attract people into your business. So not just posting the same thing over and over again, like introducing some different elements to it. And what I mean by that is also knowing your target market. So for example, when we came over from mortgages, one of the ways that we were hiring so much is we weren't just posting about making sales and insurance. We were posting about all the things that we knew bugged loan officers that would make them want to leave mortgages, right? Because we were mortgage loan officers. So we would post things like, so glad I'm in an opportunity now where interest rates and the consumer behavior isn't going to dictate my paycheck, right? Because when you're sitting in an environment where what you're able to make gradually decreases every single month with the interest rates raising, you start to panic. We knew that. So we wanted to talk about that in what we were posting, right? So glad I don't have to deal with a 90-day pipeline anymore. And after I'm off the phone with my client, it's done, right? I don't have to do any more back end work. Like all of those pain points. So like I think for anyone that's struggling with like attracting people to your business, when you are posting, like figure out who am I targeting? Like who am I wanting to attract into my business and start posting things that are a little bit more pointed and kind of attack those pain points a little bit to really get them thinking about, the opportunity that you have to offer.
The best way to attract people though, guys, is going to be through your own credibility, which comes from your own production. Like
Yeah.
if you're a 40, 50K plus a month producer, you're going to like people are going to see that. They're going to want to work with you, right? You're going to be able to recruit a lot more people. Jumping into Scott's question here. So what phone recording programs do you recommend? We have everybody start with Phone Burner. There's a feature on there where it will record every call. You do have to go in and manually turn that on whenever, like when they first get Phone Burner, but it does have a recording system. So that's what we have people use. How much do you guys tell new agents to start spending on leads? So I tell people realistically, like our average agent is spending about $1,000 a week on leads. Like I'm just straight up at the beginning, but there's a few different ways to do it. Like you can tell your new recruits that they're going to have to pay that out of pocket right away, or you can leverage yourself. So you can help them pay for leads at the beginning. That's what we do with a lot of people. Is we help them at the beginning. If there's somebody who I think is going to be a really good fit and I think they're going to crush it, I like their mindset, then I'll help them out with leads. Or what we'll do is we'll make them go half in. So I'm like, hey, you're going to spend the first $500 and then I'm going to cover the next $500, right? So that way they have some skin in the game.
That's typically how I do it. I don't like people coming in and having zero investment because they don't take it as seriously. They just never do. So
Yeah.
I always go like I'll put in whatever you do, right? Because I want to get them used to the fact that like if they're going to have a high level of success here, like they're going to be responsible for that. And then I want to circle back to a question that you skipped over, Ryan. It says, when you say cut in the first 30, what does that look like? That more so means like we have that conversation of like, hey, either the first 30 days of them starting full time. So we at that point either like assess, have a conversation, hey, either these things are going to change immediately, like starting tomorrow, or like it doesn't make sense for you to continue, like not in a mean way. It's just we can't get you results with what we're currently getting as far as input. And that happens after that first 30 days. And again, like, don't view this as like a negative, scary conversation. Like they probably are feeling the same way too, right? If they're not putting in a ton of work, they're probably not seeing a ton of results. They're probably feeling that as well. And you're just the one verbalizing it. But it's like after the first 30 days, it's like, hey, either there's an immediate, like right now, change in behavior and how you're showing up, or like it just doesn't make sense to continue. And then we ask for a commitment from them. If we can't get it, then hey, no problem. We're going to go ahead and put you on as earned. If you ever find yourself in a position to be able to take this seriously, reach out. We'd love to get you going again. But like, you know what I mean? It's not a mean thing. Um,
Yeah. I'm going to go to the next one. So Alexis, what advice can you give to new agents for doubts and fears? So I'm pretty sure this is like a Hormozy quote, but outwork your self-doubt. That's it. Like if you have like doubts, right, then you just need to literally like cut everything else out of your life. And I mean, this sounds kind of crazy, but like when our business collapsed, that's what we had to do. We stopped like drinking on the weekends. We stopped going out. We stopped going to restaurants. Like we stopped hanging out with our friends because we were like, dude, we want to make this work, but there's this like fear, right? Because of what just happened. So like the most logical thing for us though is if we really truly wanted to make this work, we were going to put our 100% complete focus on this business and getting it to where we needed it to be. And that is how we conquered that fear, right? Like we focused only on this and we made it work.
Yeah, and another like her on that topic, like talking about Hormozy, that's because we listened to like I had a ton of self-doubt, especially as a woman, right? Like the biggest fear that I had in this business that I would build something, it would collapse, literally happened. So there was definitely some imposter syndrome going on. Like I'm not gonna lie to you about that. Like I woke up every single day, like, oh my God, like I knew I wasn't cut out for this. Like it's validated, right? But the biggest thing that I figured out, like, and this is something that we make a huge emphasis within our organization, is your business will only be able to develop that you as a person are able to personally develop. So, like, we put a huge emphasis on sales as a piece of the pie, but it's not all of it when it comes to your success here, because this isn't a job, right? This is a business. You are self employed. And like part of being self-employed is that it's hard, it's risky, it's scary, it's all of the things. So if you're only working on your sales ability, but not your personal development, like who you are as a person and getting your mindset and all these things developed, you're never going to reach that like next level because it's not just about sales, right? It's about how are you able to show up even when things get hard, right? So what that looks like for us was like creating a morning routine. Like we want to create people that are taking this seriously as a business and not just like a thing that they do for fun on the side that could make them some extra money, right? Like we want people to understand like this is your business, this is your baby, and part of that is personal development. So like our team in the morning, we have a morning routine that people tap into, and they send out a message to the Discord, and it involves three things: a physical win, a spiritual win, and a mental win. Physical win is simple, right? I get in a workout, a walk, something to where I'm getting active. I'm getting that like dopamine from getting active, right? It also helps clear your mind and just kind of start the day off on a good note. The mental win is going to be some type of podcast, pages in a entrepreneurship book, something like that, constantly exposing yourself, right, to people that are more successful than you and farther along than you and have experienced these things ahead of you. I learn something literally every single day from one of those. A lot of things I talk about in huddles and meetings and trainings are things that I've taken from those podcasts I listen to on a daily basis, right? Just gets you into that entrepreneurial mindset. Spiritual wins usually like meditation, gratitude, something like that, to like from like a feelings and emotions perspective, feel grounded, feel stable, feel okay, right? So those three wins, when you start your day off with those wins, the rest of the day is paved, right? You're just going to keep winning the rest of the day. But if you roll out of bed at 7 o'clock, you check your email, it's an Americo and it's a chargeback, like, ugh, you know what I mean? Like you're going into the day in this negative headspace, you're probably not going to win the day to the same level. So
Yeah.
when it comes to like the fear and doubt stuff, just personal development.
The other thing too, so we'll wrap this up here after this. I'm going to answer Jamie's question. So what are you telling 5 to 10K agents to get them to 20 to 30K? That's going to depend on the person and the situation. And that kind of brings me back to like why setting that expectation to make sure they're tracking their KPIs and their sales and all that stuff is so important. Because if somebody comes to me and they're like, hey, dude, I'm only writing like 7K a month. And I'm like, dang, we need to get that up to like 20, 30 at least, right? Pull up your KPIs. Where are they? If they're able to pull that information up, I can see like, maybe they're getting a lot of presentations and they're actually making a lot of sales for the amount of leads they're buying, but maybe they're just not buying enough leads. So if they pull that up, I can see that right away. And I'm like, oh, dude, it's easy. We just need to, what you're spending in a month, now we just need to spend that in a week and then watch what happens, right? I've seen agents, like I've had that exact conversation with agents and watched them go from being a 15K a month producer to a 60K a month producer within a couple months, right? Sometimes it's not leads. Maybe they're buying a lot of leads, but they're just not getting into enough presentations. And so we can see that on their tracker. And now I'm like, okay, there's a training issue here, right? And so I can identify that and then actually sit down with them and address it and have them pull their calls and we can see exactly where they're going wrong in their calls. So hopefully that answers that question. What specific numbers do you tell them?
I just put in the chat. All right, awesome. Well, I think we'll keep it there because we're at the 35-minute mark, but thank you guys for, spending the morning with us today. Obviously, very, very general, right? Like a very general pieces of advice for you guys, but things that made a huge difference for us. So you guys already have the first step down. You're plugged into your resources, which means you're taking this more seriously than thousands of other people, which means this group is probably going to be the group that's going to be running their own agencies in the next 6 months to a year. So super proud of y'all for jumping in with us today. Thank you guys for your time and let's crush the day.
Thank you guys. Kill it.